Hello all and welcome to a battle between the vengeful Wood Elves up against the poor and pathetic humans of the Empire. As you can tell by that intro, I am in fact, of course, going to be in control of the Wood Elves, and we are going to have to pause quickly because I have gone for a 99.999% Vanguard build. We just have these one little unit here, these lovely ladies, the Loex Tricksters, who are one of my favourite units in the game actually, bring great anti-large. They have some pretty cool little nifty abilities down here as well. Stormblades and Loex Shroud give them a speed increased, stalk and unspottable, and they're quite a key part of the army. Unfortunately though, they do not have Vanguard, but the rest of my army, as you can see, has moved up. Now for the entire front line we have gone for Dryads. These guys do absolutely fantastic against Empire infantry. Apart from great swords, they will just tear apart pretty much most of what the Empire have. And backing them up here, we do have one of their own kind, a Branch Wraith, who's going to be coming in with those big Earth Bloods and also Shield of Thorns, giving a nice 22% physical resistance and 25% weapon damage. And of course, Earth Blood is just a heal to a area. So looking very creepy there for Skull, and she's going to be riding alongside Orion, the King of the Woods himself, who's incredibly pivotal to this entire build. So he has a few cool abilities, the best one being Cloak of Isha. So when he gets below 20% health, he gets a ridiculous amount of health regen plus a 44% damage resistance, making him very tanky. He himself anti-large, terror causing, all that good stuff. There's a few cool abilities, but the main one here is the Horn of the Wild Hunt. So this gives a 54% charge bonus to everyone on the map. So if timed correctly with these Vanguard builds, you do disgusting damage on the charge. Now up in the woods, we have one unit of Wild Riders, and then we have two with shields just chilling in the back looking for some good targets. And over on the right hand side, we do have the Wild Hunters of Kurnos. Now, not only have they gained little magic glowy bits around the tips of their spears, and they look even more ridiculously badass than they already did, they've gained some nifty abilities. So they've lost Guardian, which they had before, but instead they have gained magic attacks, which is okay, in most matchups. And they've also gained a bonus versus large, which as we can see here is 13, which is pretty considerable. Now they should be able to deal with cheap cav like Empire Knights, which they could deal with before, but not particularly quickly. They should now be able to destroy them very quickly. And as you can see, we have gone for a full surround, kind of roughly guessing whether my opponent is going to deploy. Now for my opponent's army, he has gone for a front line of swordsmen. Not too bad of a choice here. They are all chevroned up as well to triple chevron, so they should actually hold fairly well against Dryads, although still probably lose in a big prolonged engagement. There's a couple of spearmen in a backup line as well dotted around, and one in the back. And then for a caster, he has an Amber Wizard right here, looking very cool. A little bit like, is it Radagast from the Hobbit movies? A little bit like him. And he's literally just brought Transformation of Kadon here to summon some Manticores. He's also gone for a couple of units of Crossbowmen. Now, I really rate this play over the Handgunners in this matchup. If I had brought all the big nasty trees, he might have been in a bit of trouble. But as we can see, he does have a cannon in the back to deal with them. These are going to do much better and trade much more effectively against Wood Elf archers and cheaply armoured Wood Elf units as a whole. Now he has gone for a heavy knight contingent, 4 units of Empire Knights. These guys will do fairly decent against most of my army just because they're heavy armor. Wild Riders will beat them one-on-one, especially if we get the charge. However, it will be, not very cost effective. And last but not least, up in the sky, my opponent has brought the mighty Boris Todbringer himself. Let's see what he's brought with him. He has brought the Middenland Rune Fan, giving him that nice replenishing of hit points. He's also got Crush the Weak, which is a very Empire thing, I feel. The White Cloak of Ulrich and Foe Seeker and all that good stuff. And of course, up on his mighty beast there, he does cause terror. So let's get this underway. So I'm actually going to start probably by going into slow-mo, just because a ton happens in one go. So instantly we do move all our forces forward, and then we collapse from all angles. So before my opponent has a chance to even react, the Wild Hunters of Kurnos are going to be charging in the back. Yes, there's spearmen here, but it's a nice rear charge, and we'll see the damage they do to this great cannon off the bat is ridiculous. As men of the Empire do go flying, and the vengeful elves sound the horns. So that cannon is going to be going down very quickly. Now we're going to 2v1 one of the Empire Knights in the back here with 2 units of Wild Riders, just trying to smash them as quickly as possible, and we're going to have one more unit sprouting from the trees as the main advance does push up. So as you can see, that cannon is getting destroyed so quickly, and these Empire Knights getting a flank and rear charge, their health is just plummeting. And as you can see, we just about pulled off the Horn of the Wild Hunt with that unit there. However, they are getting collapsed on now by a mass amount of knights. We're going to have to be very quick and zoom out of there. So the Dryads are charging with their nice charge bonus now, hopping on what they can, doing some decent damage. And in the back, we're trying to hop on top of these crossbowmen, but great play by my opponent, bringing Boris in and trying to scare off these Wild Riders. But they are pushing through, still doing decent damage. In the back, our 2 units managed to rout off 1 unit of Empire Knights, but in return, it was getting charged a bit much, so we just pull back there. And over on the right-hand side, the Wild Hunters also pull away from these spearmen before once again beginning their chase against the Great Cannon. Now, as you can see, all along the front line, things are going okay. It's a bit of a stalemate for the most part, and in fact, the Triple Bronze Swordsman with a bit of crossbow support actually helped break one of our units of Dryads. But elsewhere it's going good, and of course we have the beastly Orion. So Wild Hunters now, all across the field, are charging in on top of these nice squishy targets. These ones in particular hopping on top of some crossbowmen, which is going to be some netting very good value and not too many losses in return. And we managed to pin off a couple of units of them, and it looks like their caster is a little bit in the open. So my opponent, once again, moving in a giant blob with these knights, using Boris as well to try and trap some Wild Riders. We do take a few losses, but quite quickly we're going to pull out to these forests and try and lose our pursuit. And over on the flank, these Wild Hunters over here did manage to hunt down the Great Cannon, and they're going to be switching their target to the Empire Knights, of course, with their bonus versus large. Now, we do have one unit being traced off by some swordsmen, but that's not the end of the world. At least it gets those swordsmen out of the way. We do drop a nice Shield of Thorns down as well to help just push this front engagement a bit more in our favour. I believe I can hear a feral manticore being summoned there with a horrible screeching sound. And our little pocket here of Dryads and our hero court is going to be moving in towards these crossbowmen, trying to support these Wild Riders, who my opponent is really trying to pick apart wherever he can, just with mass knights and his flying units. We do have one unit of Wild Riders up in the high ground here rallying, which is all good, and they're going to be coming in for a rear charge on these swordsmen, I believe. And up in the distance, we did manage to completely shatter some Empire Knights before skittering away once again away from these spearmen, searching for nicer targets. Now the main mosh pit has got underway, and it looks like it's going bad for me, but Orion is anti-large, and he is tanky as crap. He takes just no one's business. He's going to be beating the absolute brakes off Boris Todbring here quite comfortably, in my opinion at least. So even though there's these Empire Knights around here and it's a fairly scary situation, I finally remembered I have the Loix Tricksters. I had left them deliberately, I'm going to say, deliberately forgotten them in reserve. They're going to be charging up as fast as they possibly can now to try and hop on top of Boris and these Knights and really help support Orion by stacking on top of him. Now we have Wild Riders chasing down units wherever we can, and a couple of units of Dryads here. And in the background, these Wild Riders, they just didn't need to get into this engagement. They could have easily smashed the Empire Knights. However, there was these spearmen lurking nearby, and with their anti-large, they would eventually be able to drag down these guys. So simply give them a little bit of a ring around the rosies there, falling all the way around, and we're just going to jump on top of this very squishy Great Cannon and just get value where we can, pick the fights. We have the mobility. So Loix Tricksters did hop on top of Boris and instantly do a fairly big chunk of damage on him. So he is going to be fleeing for the hills, and they're going to simply turn and try and deal with this feral manticore, which has actually vanished now. So we'll be moving our forces up, I assume, onto these crossbowmen. Although it looks like some Wild Riders are springing from the trees who have rallied, and they'll be hopping on top of these crossbowmen as well. Just trying to chase units down wherever we can. Power balance is still very even, though my opponent has just summoned a manticore. He's desperately trying to pick apart these Wild Riders wherever they can, but they're simply going to keep skirting and keep moving away and wrap all the way around, I believe, to attack this Amber Wizard as much as possible. So our main bulk of our forces here, there are 2 heroes and a very healthy unit of Loix Tricksters. So some Wild Riders are going to come charging in here, trying to break these crossbowmen and spearmen off a little bit quicker. Coming in for that nice rear charge, sending those guys flying. We should be able to break them very quickly there. But my opponent does respond with a charge from his Empire Knights. But we're not too fussed by that at the moment, as we do have the Loix Tricksters here who should do a decent job. But a Feral Manticore coming in as well as Boris as well. He's really going for that Alpha Strike. But we do have some more Wild Riders charging down the hill to get involved, and a couple of units of Dryads. Now, the very tricksy Wild Hunters of Konos have once again evaded these Empire Knights, basically making this, huge amount of points cost for my opponent. Well, not huge, they're fairly cheap, but making them useless for 90% of the battle, which is quite nice. It looks like we're trying to break off this Amber Wizard. We're not going to quite get it, so we do once again be a pain in the arse and just flee away from these Empire Knights, taking no casualties. we have a very strong blob here, which is obviously very good considering our magic is all area of effect based. We are trying to bog down Boris wherever we can and bog down these other units. Azure Spears now getting very beaten up. Unfortunately, they are very squishy. They have done a lot of damage to these large threats. One unit of Wild Riders, however, is running for the hills, but if they come back, they'll be able to hop on some of these nice, juicy crossbowmen. And as you can see, the Wild Riders here were going to move away and hop on top of some crossbowmen, but I thought this is a very key engagement here. So I need to wrap them round, get them behind Boris and ping him in. It looks like he is starting to rout there. Empire Knights falling back, but everywhere I look there is so many Empire Knights still lurking. So it looks like we were going to be able to pin Boris in, so these Wild Hunters were continuing their pursuit, but then I realised he managed to sneak away using his high mass. I wasn't going to be able to catch him, so instead we do go for a headlong charge into these Empire Knights. So originally we tried to avoid it, seeing that we're going to get sandwiched. We're then forced to take the engagement, which is not a good engagement for us. Great play by my opponent, trying to pull me away. So what I do here is I take this other very healthy unit of Wild Riders and go for a massive rear charge on this blob of Empire Knights, hoping the elite Wild Hunters are kind of going to hold using their anti-large bonus. Or bonus versus large, sorry, and then drop a big shield of thorns, giving me that physical resistance and weapon damage, and we really start to turn this engagement in our favour. So that's all gone quite good now. It looks like there's another unit, almost full health of Empire Knights, coming in for a crashing charge, and Boris as well. So we turn the situation, my opponent immediately turns it back. So very nice play there. We managed to rescue one unit of the Wild Riders, pulling back without taking too much damage. However, everyone, it looks like, is going to get caught out a little bit there, and they are starting to flee in terror. However, Orion has got popped on top of this Amber Wizard, not Orion, sorry, this Branch Wraith. And the Branch Wraith is going to beat the snot out of this Amber Wizard very comfortably, especially these Wild Riders coming charging in and doing a decent amount of work there. We managed to break this nice section off now, and it's basically come down to a couple of units. I've got about 4 units left. We have a quick survey of the battlefield here with some Dryads battling with some swordsmen and units kind of doing little bits all over, but for the most part my opponent has 3 units of Cav, one of them being very healthy, and one being very weak, and also Boris, who obviously does have that heal as well. But we've been healing up as we go, no one near their healing cap just yet. So we're just chasing down this Amber Wizard, making sure that we completely and utterly shatter her. And we're just going to try and get freebies where we can. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit now. So I don't think anything too exciting happens for a little while. So yeah, we just chase down these units, making sure to shatter off the units where we can. Trying to not get too far away from our Loex Tricksters and Orion with our Wild Riders. We don't want to get these guys picked off. And then there's going to be a little bit of cat and mouse here, as he does chase off most of my units. All the ones that were fleeing, however, and we obviously are going to do the same thing. Just completely shatter spin where we can. At this point, I thought my opponent was probably going to try and kite draw me. It looked like he was going to do it to start with, but he does in fact look like he's actually just repositioning his troops. So I was going to flee to the trees and make a last stand there, but instead, for actually my opponent, he was just chasing off some units and repositioning. So I am in fact going to push out here. And I make a huge mistake here, unfortunately. So I was clicking all his abilities. I thought both of them were warm. I dropped one, and I accidentally click the Horn of the Wild Hunt, which is that gigantic charge bonus. Now, if I just waited and been able to use that when these knights charge in, these Wild Riders would munch through them in a matter of seconds. So I've made this situation a little bit more difficult than it needed to be. Orion, however, is throwing his giant spear at these knights, though, getting some decent damage and force my opponent to come to me. We'll see a big spear coming in there. It looks like it does bring down 2 knights, so he can't afford for too long to just sit back and kind of chill out. He's going to try and reposition, but we do just simply blob up with the Loex Tricksters here. And then we go for a big old charge into these Empire Knights. Orion leading the way, Wild Riders popping in, and we do pop a big shield of thorns down now, as everything, all my anti-large, is going to be trying to hop on top of Boris. But the Wild Riders are trying to deal with these infantry here, trying our best situation, and it is just basically a big blob fight, which at this point, surprisingly, Wood Elves aren't normally the best at big blob fights, does actually support me because of these shield of thorns are coming down. Opponent very wisely here pulls out some Empire Knights and wraps them around to smack into these Wild Riders. I was hoping with the shield of thorns I'd be able to hold, so I didn't reposition anything. I really was trying to snipe out Boris at this point with the Orion and the Loex Tricksters, as I saw these Empire Knights were wavering. Unfortunately for me, it looks like these Wild Riders are getting beaten up surprisingly quickly, but I suppose, you know, they've done good the whole battle. Let's see, they're actually up to 158 kills, so I can't exactly complain here. Boris is struggling, however. Orion, a far better duelist, mixed in with the Branch Wraith, and these Loex Tricksters are doing a decent damage, and he is breaking off, but he does rally as he flies up into the air. My opponent does pull back, Now we're going to see the bane of one of my existences, apart from the Shopti Great Bows, which are the biggest bane of my total war existence. Kind of cycle charging to the death when it gets like this can be unfortunately very frustrating, but I understand it is a valid tactic. He has the mobility and he's going to simply keep on cycle charging, trying to break me down and wear down my units. But we've got a pretty healthy blob here, and Orion doesn't mind too much if you charge into him. Instead, he's going to be Kobe Spears over to Boris, almost breaking him. You see his Empire Knights are coming charging in, and they're going to swoop away once again, trying to take as little damage as possible. So a little bit of a fast forward here, as Boris is just going to try and chase off these Wild Riders who are trying to lose him in the trees. And the Empire Knights are going to be simply charging in, zooming away, charging in, zooming away. However, each time they do this, they do lose a couple of models to Orion, and he, of course, does cause terror. And with the power balance so heavily in my favour, Orion's just Kobe and Spears where he can. And actually, we'll try and get this here, I think, because I think there's some really nice spear throwing coming in. So my opponent does actually come in a column here, and this massive spear coming in, slaying 3 Empire Knights in one go. So he knows he can't keep this up. He's going to have to get into combat. Lurk Trickster's simply falling back to my hero core here. I'm quite happy. Cobian Spears killing 3 or 4 knights every single throw, and that does shatter my opponent's army there. So overall, very well played to my opponent. Only a Pyrrhic victory, incredibly close game. Let's go to the end stats. So yes, well played to 132880270. I don't understand why people have those type of names, but, you know, I see a lot of them around at the moment. I think that my last couple of opponents have all had numbers. Maybe it's they don't care about the name, or they want to stay a little bit anonymous. Overall, I quite like my opponent's build, though. I thought he played very well, especially with his Empire Knights. Got a bit unfortunate at the start. I managed to catch one of them out, but apart from that, he used them pretty well. 2 of them got distracted for quite a while, putting pressure on my Wild Riders, but it did make me, you know, stress my micro, which could have been used in other areas. But overall, nice cycle charging at the end. Decent job. I'm liking the Chevron Swordsman, allowing them to stand up really well with the Dryads. Spearman, always a great pick. Crossbowman, I like this matchup. And Empire Knights, overall, really nice build. Now, this is my first time, I believe, doing a Wood Elf Rush build since the big patch update, where, of course, now Orion can Vanguard, which is super cool. So I could have taken a 100% Vanguard build, but these Lurk Tricksters are so valuable, and you can see 85 kills. A lot of that was on Knights, and they did a lot of damage to Boris. Overall, though, Dryads, decent pick. They tear through infantry, as we discussed earlier, but the Wild Riders, 109, 78, 158, and 77 kills on those guys, reaping huge value. And Orion, the man, the myth, the legend himself, 135. And at the end there, he's just such a tank. He didn't even have to pop the Cloak of Isha to get that mass healing. My only worry there was that he might get routed before that happens. But overall, really fun game. Well played to my opponent. Hope to meet you again on ladder at some point soon, and hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please do consider leaving a like and subscribing and all that good stuff. I also have a Patreon account down in the description below if you want to support. Now guys, until next time, stay awesome, peace, and adios amigos.